Hi there.
Hey, everybody.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good
Good.
night, depending where you're located. And yes, that's a quote from The Truman Show. We're
I
just
haven't
getting
seen that
things
one in
set up.
years.
No, it's a classic. I love that show. Has a lot of
Sounds
parallels
fun.
to The Matrix, actually. Well before The Matrix. But the idea of living in a fake designed world, that kind of stuff. We're just getting the Facebook stream started here as well.
Always fun figuring out a new technology live on the fly.
Yes, absolutely. Luckily, Carisha has put together these great
Anurag, is that a
instructions here.
Christmas decoration I see behind you?
It is. We put up our
Oh,
Christmas tree on over the weekend. I know.
oh, that's a
Quick
crime.
impromptu poll. Who has Christmas decorations up already? Please, I need some support here, guys. We decked out the whole house. We decked out the whole house.
Oh,
Well,
that's.
as much as possible. Uh,
I think you'll still need to let people in from the waiting room. I'm not sure if there's anyone still in there now. Hi,
looks like
Michael.
we've got 19 people in or 17 looks like. Okay.
Hey, Michael, Jack, and Shanna. Welcome. Thanks everybody for popping in today.
Appreciate your time, everyone. We've got
Morning to Corey. I guess it is still technically morning. We're still on coffee.
looks like we've got is that our Cassandra? I see Cassandra. Could be our
Oh, she doesn't
Cassandra.
go by Cassandra.
I know that.
That's
That's why
one of our one.
I'm confused. I'm confused.
You guys can fight it out for the title of who gets to keep that name.
Okay. We'll just give it maybe one more minute. Let people settle in. In the meantime, if everyone can just so Peter's going to be mainly looking after the chats here. So if just a quick sort of tech check, if everyone can just quick thumbs up, you guys can hear us okay. I see some people in the chats already. Kassan, yes, it's you. Hello. So,
Yeah, if you guys have any questions throughout the whole process, if there's anything that's unclear, you wanted some more topics on, feel free to shoot over any questions in the chat. I'll get to answering them live. And if we don't get a chance to get to talk about anything while we're all here together, more than happy if you shoot over your email and let us know. We'll send out any of the info as well. And there's also going to be a pretty fun giveaway today, one of Anurag's wonderful surprises. So, we might need those emails anyway if you guys are interested in being a part of the gang.
That's a good intro, Peter, and good clue as well. You guys will see what we mean later on. So, hope you guys are all excited. This should be a fun one. We're up to 19, so that's great. Peter, I'm looking at your video, and even I get confused. Sometimes is it you or me? Because you've got my wardrobe going on today.
For those of you who don't know, Anurag's worn a white T-shirt almost every single day of his inFlow career. And
That's true.
of
That
course,
is
for the
true.
one time that we're live on it together, I decide to do my best impersonation of him, and he decides to not show up on proper uniform. So I'm frankly a little upset today, but we'll give him a pass for this time because he's got some good deals for you.
I tried to switch things up a bit. I tried to make it for the webinar here, but I appreciate you carrying on the tradition, Pete. Okay, we're in. There we go. Okay.
That is true, Michael. Michael's just pointing out that he also has 10 black T-shirts. We've all been informed that Anurag does indeed do laundry. He doesn't have a single shirt like a cartoon kids
Oh
character,
yeah.
but I can't actually confirm or deny that.
So
As we've all been locked up at home, I don't have confirmation.
So let me just throw it out there for everyone. I do in fact do laundry, and I do in fact have more than one shirt. Um, Shameless plug, Costco is great. Lots of bulk items. I definitely recommend it. And no, this webinar is not being sponsored by either Costco or Adidas. It just happened to be the shirt of the day. All right, let's get started. We're about 5 minutes in, so don't want to keep everyone that's here. Thanks, Michael, for the support. Let's get started. We don't want to keep everyone waiting here, so let me start the share my screen here, and we can get going. So, no. Okay. So now I'm sharing my screen. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Being A-okay.
Perfect. Okay, so all right, so the topic for today, of course, is inFlow for the whole team. So really, we're going to be, broad strokes going over. It's pretty self-explanatory, actually, how everyone can use inFlow as a team collaboratively. As you all know, obviously, inFlow Cloud is a cloud-based system, so that's one of the main things is being able to collaborate with team members. So let's get started. Today's topics. So we're going to talk about two different main sections. So inFlow for the team. We're going to talk about number one, defining exactly what is a team member. Talking about different settings and so user access rights, different restrictions that you can place on team members. So we'll talk about location, different profiles, and we're going to go into managing team members as well. So looking at different typical profiles that we see. So whether you work in a warehouse, whether you're a sales rep, whether you work in the office or finance. Quick introduction, I guess. I should have started off with this. So my name's Anurag.
And I'm Peter.
And Peter, I work in the sales department of inFlow, working on the sales SDR or sales development side of things. So if you'd started a trial, you would have spoken to either one of myself or one of my colleagues. And then, of course, Peter works. Well, Peter, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Well, I'm over on the success team, making sure everyone stays happy, gets the most out of inFlow. This is why we sort of run these webinar series, making sure that you guys know all the wonderful things that we're doing and building and can take advantage of them and use them as you go.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's.
So one of the important things just about the managing team member section that we'll get into a bit later on, we're going to give you a couple of archetypes, things that are pretty usual and standard that we run into, but that's sort of the beauty of the way that we have team members and the way that we control the access is that you guys can actually customize each individual person, each individual user to all the different things that they're going to need and want and the different levels of access. And also, just as a note, we're going to bop between team members, users, account reps, all those different users. It all means the same thing. It's an email address and a password combination, and that sort of leads us into our next point.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Peter. So what is a team member? And here we go. So basically, just like Peter said, so a team member is someone with a unique login, so username and password. They can access your database on any inFlow Cloud plan. Doesn't matter where they're located. Doesn't matter if you guys are in the same different rooms or different countries, different continents, doesn't matter. All that you need is obviously a reliable, stable internet connection. Typically, our plans start with 2 team members, and any admin user can add or remove as many team members as you'd like. So team members, users, etc. So again, just like Peter said, a team member is essentially anyone that you'd like to have access to your account.
Now, you guys will be using different, whether it be on the web, whether it be on our desktop app, over your phones. If you have different people working at the same time, not going to be an issue. No one's going to be stepping on each other's toes. Everything's updated in real time. So whether you're a Fortune 500 company or, husband and wife duo working on stuff out of the garage, you're going to be able to coordinate and make sure no one gets angry at each other. Well,
Exactly.
maybe not angry at each other for the husband and wife. Apology.
There's plenty of other things to get mad at each other. Trust me, my wife gets mad at me all the time. It's a common thing. But
we got you a robot vacuum to avoid that. I can't believe that she's still mad about you at that.
Oh, the robot vacuum helps me personally because it saves me
course.
from vacuuming at 7 a.m, which is typically what I do.
Now, there's a lot of great advantages to setting up these different profiles, one being the husband, one being the wife, and the different things that you guys can actually set up between them. So why don't you go over some of the different cool elements of personalization for team members?
Absolutely. So let's talk about that. So there's a lot of different ways. Keep in mind that we're going to cover sort of the high level, give you the broad strokes here, and feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to dive deeper into your personal accounts and whatnot. But you can change personal team member settings, and we're going to talk through a lot of these points in the slides, and then we are going to actually show you these things live in a quick demo as well. But you can change personal team member settings. So as we talk about, so default location. So I might be someone that you might be a business that keeps inventory in 2 or 3 or more different locations, but you only want certain team members, or you want certain team members to be housed or have a home location where they're typically working out of, right? And we'll go through that. You can separate email addresses. You can mark people as sales reps. The location autofill, so make sure people are always working out of the right building. So you might have reps that are working out. A lot of customers have, let's say, a warehouse in Toronto, which is where we are, maybe another warehouse in Montreal, but you want to make sure that your Toronto employees are fulfilling out of the Toronto warehouse rather than the Montreal warehouse, as an example, really quickly. Assign to, so again, as the name implies, you can assign both purchase orders and sales orders to individual team members. So I might create a sales order and Peter's the one that's going to be fulfilling it. Maybe he's the one that works in the warehouse, and I might assign it to him. So that's a use case there. And then notification settings. So a couple of ways these work. So in different contexts, so you can get low stock notifications. These are basically heads up emails when we in the context of setting reorder points. inFlow essentially letting you know when stock is running low before you're out completely. Assign to orders and updates. So like I said, if I assign an order to Peter, he's going to get an update as well, or an email letting him know that there's been an order assigned to him.
It's also one of the things that we're building the most right now is this notification settings assigned to expanding on how teams coordinate and work together. So if there's any sort of features or anything like that that you guys would want or be interested in, we'd love to hear your feedback and input into that. So feel free to shoot us an email or drop it in the chat now.
Awesome. Right. So let's talk about tracking. So how do you know what your team members are doing, right? And my boss is on the webinar here, so she's tracking me what I'm doing right now. So each team member that uses inFlow Cloud, like we said, they have their own login. So this is an example of what we call a version history. So you'll be able to actually see who's made a particular change. In the example here, it's a sales order, but it applies. You'd be able to essentially see who did what. So, for example, if I created a sales order and then maybe Peter changed something on it, maybe he added an item or whatever he did, right? I'd be able to see that. It's really about accountability and traceability. inFlow is really designed to be a transparent and accountable system.
Exactly. And there's a really great report that we're going to show off next called the Team Member Tracking Report. Now, this is for administrators only, Anurag, if you'd pop over to the next slide.
Yeah.
But you would see whether it's tracking an individual user across a certain date range. So if you want to see everything that a certain sales rep's done over a month or a 6-month process, if you're looking for a particular date to know what might have happened or what might have gone wrong on a particular point in time, or if you're looking at a particular order and you want to see maybe all the different updates and who made what changes, like there's lots of different ways to slice it. And it's only available for certain members of your actual administrative team, but you guys should be able to go in and check in and get an idea of everything that happened at any point in time. Not that we're saying, we're trying to keep your staff honest here, but if anything does happen or anything does come up, all that information is really easily available and quick to track down.
And it's a really good record too, right? Like, let's say there's a customer dispute, right? Like, oh, Anurag told me this or whatnot, and you can see exactly what happened in the system or whatever the case might be. So it works both ways, both for accountability and for protection in certain cases as well. Okay. Talk about user access rights. So there's different levels of access that you could have for each team member, right? And again, we're going to dive into a demo shortly here, but essentially full access, as the name implies. So whoever the team member is, they've got full access to the feature. And this is something that's really, really interesting, really, really exciting, that we've broken down specific areas of features, and we'll show you this as well. But for example, not just broad features like sales orders or purchase orders or inventory, but as you'll see a little bit, you can see in the screenshot here, there's different sort of within the main features, there's different things that you can either have access to or not. So you can really hone in on what you want your team members to be able to do or not do. So again, Peter, go ahead.
Well, there's three main levels of access that you're going to be able to give your team members for these different sections. There's full access, being able to edit, make changes, revisions, do anything that you would want with the area of the program. View only, obviously, as the name suggests, they'd be able to view certain things, maybe purchase orders and vendors to know what's coming in, but they won't be able to actually do any of the changes to that ordering system, actually placing anything externally with any of your suppliers. And then obviously no access, where completely shut off, can't view that area of the program at all. Can be really useful if you want to do things like limit the cost and the value of your side of the program. You know, no purchase orders, no costs, no reports. You can limit a lot of your team members from being able to see that financial side of the program while still being able to physically pick, receive, and do a lot of those necessary movements of goods while still, you know, not having access to a lot of the financial details. And that's something that we built into the receiving and picking access. And that's going to be specific to the mobile app, whether it be on your phone or on your smart scanner. I'm going to be able to go and fulfill an order, whether it's barcode scanning, whether it's receiving a PO coming in, but I'm not going to see anything like the customer information, the vendor information. I'm not going to know anything besides what I need to know about that particular order. So it can be really useful to keep things moving, but not give away too much.
Exactly. And I find this, and Peter, you know, you've dealt with more than your fair share of customers, I'm sure, or I know, but you know, a lot of times customers might say, you know, I don't want my, you know, warehouse staff to be able to see certain aspects of orders, right, like you touched on. So this comes in really handy for those types of situations also. Okay, so that's user access rights. That's one example of restriction. Another way you can restrict is by location, right? And you know, as the name implies, so essentially, let's say you've got 2 or 3 different locations that you set up. Maybe you've got a warehouse in Toronto, another in Montreal, et cetera, et cetera. And you can restrict which locations your team members have access to. So as we say in the slide here, if a team member doesn't have access to all locations, they can't do things essentially that affect all locations. So edit, remove, add locations. Again, even if they have admin rights, they'll need access to all locations to do things that affect globally, so to speak, right?
It can be really useful, especially if you've got multiple different branches of a particular store, multiple different areas where you wouldn't want people to necessarily see the stock levels or the sales at another location. They're going to be completely limited from all orders, all customers, everything that's assigned to that location is going to be totally siloed off, making sure people aren't, well, getting in the way of each other, getting upset or jealous about different other areas of the company. A lot of our customers find it really useful as they start to grow and they find those issues start to come up.
Exactly. Perfect. Right. So this actually leads into a version of this comes in really handy when we're talking about sales reps. So we'll talk about that next when we talk about restricting sales reps. Okay. So essentially, you can set up team members to be sales reps in inFlow. So what does that actually mean? So that means that you can restrict them to only view customers and orders that they own, meaning that they've created, right? So Peter sort of alluded to this in the last slide, is if I'm a sales rep and, you know, this is a fairly common situation. If I'm a sales rep, typically the management, they don't want sales reps to be able to see customers of other sales reps, right? And things like that. So this is a really good example where this would help with that. And then you'll also still be able to run specifically a sales rep report or sales representative report to get the total sales information for each rep. So this helps you calculate commission. And obviously this point was written by Peter. And you can dole out high fives as well. So
it's a very crucial element of the sales process to be able to dole out the proper high fives at the proper times.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. All right. Peter, anything you wanted to add to that before we move on?
No, I think that touches well on especially the sales rep element. It's still a new part. We actually only released it, I believe, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month or two. So Again, any feedback, anything that you'd want to see, we'd love to know how you guys would want to restrict your team members, how you'd want to get an understanding of what they're doing and what they need to do, because this is always a work in progress and we're always open to thoughts.
Absolutely. And on that thought, I mean, I remember speaking with customers like a year and a half ago, and they were asking, or they were asking with the feedback, they were asking for things like sales reps and what we're talking about now. And so it's really great to see that actually coming into play. So that's an example of, any feedback that you guys give. It's definitely valued, and it's a huge part of, planning and new feature development and whatnot, right? So it's great. Okay, so purchase order approvals. We're going to go over this in a high level, and the reason is, if any of you might be familiar with another webinar, and I'll talk about that in a second. But essentially, with this feature enabled, any purchase orders that you make in inFlow, they'll need to be approved. So before you can essentially do anything with them. So print them, email them, receive or pay them. Each team member can have their own limits. So for example, if Peter and I are both team members, then Peter might have a higher limit. He might be able to approve orders at a higher limit than I can, as an example. You can also unapprove orders if you change your mind. And like I said, we're going to keep this at a high level for this webinar. It is an important feature of working within a team, but we've got a whole other webinar on this topic to dive into that in a lot more detail. Purchase order approvals.
And you guys have to understand, this is Anurag Shameless Plus. It's his other webinar on the purchase order approvals. So if you want to come see more of him and get to understand a little bit more about what he knows, it's a really great dive into all the different things that you can do. But at the highest level, this sort of allows your team to operate sort of as fast as possible. Day-to-day orders, no big deal. But if someone starts to get spending $10,000 or $20,000, you might want to get notified or at least get a heads up, if not the chance of approval. So sort of what we intended here.
Absolutely. And on the note of shameless plug-in, also check out the barcoding video. It's a great one as well. I'm also on that one. And we're in one of them, actually.
We're a small team here. They rely on us a lot for the videos.
Exactly. I enjoy being part of the YouTube channel. Okay. So we're going to go in. So before we jump into the team member profile, so that was sort of the first, call it, segment of the webinar in terms of different aspects of restrictions and whatnot on team members. So we're going to go into a little bit of a quick demo here to talk about some of the things to show you some of the things that we talked about, and then we're going to dive into the actual different team member profiles as well. Okay, so let me just, there we go. So this is my sample account. It's a test account that I've made. So it's with a test database. You'll notice that obviously I'm the user here, Anurag. That's my email address. Couple of just quick things. Company details. Hint, you might want to keep a note of this, is Optical Illusions Inc. That's the name of our company that we're working with. Again, I'm going to repeat that, Optical Illusions Inc. That's what all of my profs used to do in school when they wanted me to remember something. Funny enough, this actually works. I had a grade 7 teacher that wanted me to remember that this little bone here is called the occipital orbital ridge. In grade 7, Mr. Belcher dared me to remember that. Is that relevant?
Today, everybody.
Yeah. Is that relevant to this discussion? Only because I'm asking you to remember the company. Other than that, it's just a fun fact.
So this account page here, it's one of the ways where you go and actually be able to edit and change your team members. You can also cop in from the desktop app. But if you'll scroll down a little bit, Anurag, you'll see the team member section. And this is something that's going to be only available to administrators. So unless you're someone who's actually on the account who maybe did the setup or was added, you're not going to be able to view this. You're not going to be able to control your sort of parallel colleagues' different access. But here's where you'll find a lot of the things that we've just gone over, where there's the approver section for purchase order approval, setting that up. There's turning people as sales reps on for how to control whether or not they're going to be able to see other people's customers or just their own. And then you'll see also on the far right there's just a little edit button. That's how you control individual people, individual reps, and that's how you break down those different access rights like what we're talking about. We've got wonderful articles and short little videos that go into the specifics of these, but really on this page is where you're going to find all the meat and potatoes of what you guys can do to control and manage the different team members in your account.
Absolutely, and Peter, that's amazing. So that's a great, it's a great summary of everything that we just talked about, right? So for example, again, just clicking to a couple of different things here. So if I want, this user, which is me, or let's use another example here. Let's say this office person, and we're going to go back to this account later on as well after some of the other slides. But if I wanted this person to be able to have full access to customers, but only be able to view sales orders, then I can set that, right? So again, there's lots of different ways you can customize this, but this is where you would go to edit those user access restrictions. Okay.
So let's dive into a couple of the profiles here.
Exactly.
We wanted to talk a little bit about some of the standard ones that we had gone over, the different individual people that we see a lot, sort of archetypes. And the first one is the actual warehouse staff, your receivers and pickers. So a lot of these people are going to be, they might not need to know the financials of the program. They might not need to get a load of all the different reports and details and quarterly goals, et cetera. But you're going to have the advantage of having them on here by skipping the stock takes, being able to receive and do all of your sales in real time through that picking and receiving. You're not going to be counting once a week. You're really going to be spreading that out over a longer period of time and saving those Saturdays in the office. You're also going to have them be able to do all of this from the palm of their hand. And again, this is a shameless plug for our wonderful mobile app. Get it from the Google Play or the App Store. But they're going to be able to do all of those updates, like what I was talking about, without needing to go and refer back to either an order sheet, an individual computer, a colleague, or bug somebody on the phone. They're going to have all that information right where they are. They're also going to be able to plan out what they need to do over the course of the day. You've got a whole list of things when they need to be shipped out, what needs to be done, and all of that organized so that they can plan out and adjust who's assigned to what, who's taking which order, and make sure they're sort of keeping on top of everything as fast as possible. Now, this is sort of an optional one as well, but we do have some great ability to generate and print off barcodes for all of these team members. So as people start, moving into the 21st century and start scanning things rather than keeping notes of different SKUs, writing stuff down, it can really help the accuracy of your picking and also your receiving to not be able to make any typos or different errors that might screw things up because you can't mess up a barcode.
Awesome. So another profile that we looked at, and we've sort of touched on this already, is the sales reps, right? So identifying specific users or team members as sales reps within inFlow. A lot of great advantages to this one. So for example, if I'm a sales rep, a lot of times I talk to businesses, and the way they get orders, they could be wholesale or distributors, is they have sales reps in the field that actually visit their customers on site, and that's how they get their orders. So if I'm sales rep in the field, I can use our great mobile app to input orders while I'm in the field, so that way you don't have to write things down and then send it back to the warehouse or wait until the end of the day when you get back to the warehouse. Nothing like that. You can input the order right into the system, and your warehouse staff can start working on it right away, getting that order put together for your customers. Save time on calls to the warehouse like we talked about. Know your sales numbers, sorry. So you can check your own sales revenue by using our sales rep report, filtering to your name and obviously your current month. So that lets you see, how am I doing for the month, right? Am I meeting my revenue goals or my profit goals or margin goals, whatever the case might be.
And
Right?
also not know anybody else's revenue as well. So no one's going to be calling and getting jealous and figuring out why so-and-so got such and such customer.
Exactly. And that's a great point, because there you can set someone up as sales reps, and then you can also use our restriction so that you can only see your own orders and not anyone else's, right? So you can blend those two together. And then the final point there, you can create special price lists, right, for your VIP customers. So automatically apply those prices to future orders on the cut by applying that pricing scheme to that specific customer profile, right? So there's our sales rep. And then the last profile that we've got here is office managers or finance. Peter, you
and these people might not exactly have access to sales orders or purchase orders. They may be view only for a lot of these, as they're not doing a lot of the physical movements, really just keeping up with the books at the end of the month or the end of the quarter. They might have access to reports, exporting all the data, but Probably not to changing settings or keeping up to date with any of the actual physical movements of goods. So really someone who's going to be higher level, they're going to be able to potentially email out in different invoices or keep track of customer records, but probably not going to be someone who's actually doing a lot of the scanning. And that's really where our restrictions come into play with some of these things. And they're going to be able to have access to all the value of your inventory in real time. They're going to be able to run and export these cost and profit reports really simply. And one of our great features is that any of our reports can be taken out to either an Excel format by a CSV or synced over to an accounting software, be it QuickBooks Online or Xero. Shameless plug for our great integrations. And as you're working with them, your accounting person, they may want to double check with inFlow and they may want some sort of view only access. But with those integrations, you can get a lot of that information that's relevant to them right where they need it in real time at any point in time.
Awesome. Yeah, and and we talk about Peter, you mentioned this as well, but a lot of times when I'm talking to customers, they tell me like I really want to be able to for my customer exactly what their account balance is, print out a customer statement. So there's lots of different ways you can keep on top of those admin tasks using inFlow.
Absolutely.
Then obviously and then using our great integrations, your accountant can be in QBO or Xero, and we have a lot of great data that gets pushed over. Basically all your financials get pushed over right there.
We wanted to go back also to optical illusions, just so that we could go together and actually, maybe let's make one of those team members together. I know Anurag was kind enough to invite me to join his optical illusions company, the Peter Plus Warehouse there. And why don't we go over setting up a bit of the access rights for this user, and we can see how I might be a warehouse staff in his company. So, I mean, the first thing that we probably want to do is to take off administrator access. I probably shouldn't have the ability to go in and change a number of different team members. I shouldn't be editing either my own self or other people's, and removing that really locks them into being a receiver of all of this information rather than a giver.
Absolutely. And so I'm just going to go ahead and adjust the restrictions here. So Peter, what do you think? So as a warehouse person, right? And when it comes to purchase orders or vendors, right? I probably want to have view only access. Correct me if I'm wrong here.
This depends a little bit on how much information you're okay with giving your warehouse staff. If you really want them to be locked into not being able to see any of the financials and sort of sticking in their lane, you can stick with a no access on these sorts of things, but we prefer to give view only just because it allows people to see and understand things that are going on that may be relevant to them, even if they're not able to make any changes that might mess something up. So I'd probably stick with receiving only, but still keep it view only on the vendor side.
Sounds good. Perfect. And so you can choose view and mobile receiving or full access mobile receiving. So there's lots of different options here. And again, this is all going to be very specific, Peter, like you said, to how you run your business, right? How, I guess, the size of your business, what information you want your receivers to have or not have, right? You can also set, for example, if you want them to be able to transfer stock, adjust stock levels, all of these things, right? As a warehouse staff, right?
So let's go back up to the sales order section really quick here, because I want to also touch on the flip side of that. So for the actual customers, this is where I'd also recommend going for view and mobile picking. Same thing for the receiving side. You're going to be able to go through the sales order, physically move it, access all the different areas, but not going to be able to change anything that might actually affect either the customer or the order itself. You may have to make an actual unfortunate call if you're out of stock and something might have been promised but overcommitted. But in terms of being able to mess something up, it's rather limited. And same thing for the view only on the customer side there. Want to make sure that people aren't editing profiles, aren't going in and changing addresses, really keeping it to what they do.
Exactly. And you'll notice that once you've set these to view only, the order prices automatically changes to view only as well, because obviously if the intent is that you don't want them to be able to change customers and whatnot, then obviously you don't want them to be able to change the prices of the items as well, right? So it sort of goes hand in hand with that. That's the logic there. Good. And so I was thinking next we can show everyone how to set up really quickly an approver and a sales rep as well, Peter.
Yeah, of course.
So I think that would be helpful for a lot of people. So for example, and you can do, the great thing is you can do a lot of these things just from this one section here. It's really, in terms of user interface, if you ask me, it's amazing. Because again, as an approver, all you have to do is you click on the approvals tab, set approval rights, toggle this on, purchase orders require approval, and then you can decide who's going to be an approver and who's not. So in this
the
case,
default setting in this case is everyone's going to be set to not be able to approve. So
right.
unless Anurag goes and actually toggles his ability to approve it on there, then
Yeah.
no one's actually going to be able to approve any orders. But once you start setting an approval limit, this is how you vary who can control what, who can spend up to which amount. Or if you want everything to come to you, leave everybody as can approve off, and then everything comes back to one individual person. This can be good if you are ordering from multiple different locations, but everything still has to flow through one central warehouse. You retain that control where you're emailing everything out, but each people can still do the necessary work to get it to you.
Exactly. And that's a great point, because you'll notice that by default, there are no approvals set. So when you first pop into inFlow, as you can see right now, there's no approval settings. You actually have to turn this feature on, and then you can decide who can approve POs. So for example, let's say it's myself and Peter, and as an example, let's say I can approve, and then I'm going to set my approval limit. I might have a relatively low approval limit, so let's say between $0 and $500 as an example, but Peter can approve up to $1 million, right? So in that case, I'm just going to click on save there.
Anything that Anurag might do over a couple $100 in this case will automatically go to me as I'm the only approver. If there was a couple of people on the account, you could choose who you wanted to approve to if you have a favorite boss or if somebody's on vacation. But in this case, it'll default to the only person who's available.
Exactly. So if the order is within that $500 limit, it can be approved by either myself or Peter. But if it's anything above 500, then obviously it'll go to Peter, because I can't approve that in this example, right? Similarly, when we talk about sales reps, so again, really quickly, so you can manage. See, I've actually set up a sales rep already, but you can manage sales reps here. Click on manage sales reps, and then you decide who you want to be set up as a sales rep. So in this case, let's say I set up Peter as a sales rep here, and then I do choose to restrict him. So again, the default is no one is restricted, but I can click on this box to make him restricted. And so now he is restricted. And then now I can set up further restrictions to restrict him to certain customers, certain locations, et cetera, et cetera. Okay.
So that's just a couple of the different people that might have been set up over the course of, I want to say, our history here, but you can vary and adjust this to whatever you need, and there's no limit to the amount of team members that you guys can have. If you want to start adding on more or vary the amount, it can really expand and grow, and we've got companies with 50 or 100 different reps all working together. Really depends on what you need and how much tracking you guys want to get into.
Exactly. And that's one of the great things, I always tell people is, inFlow can give you the level of accountability and traceability that you want, right? Not every business needs to track every single granular detail. Some do, some don't, some do a kind of. It just really depends case to case. Okay. So those are some of the sort of the high level things that we wanted to show you. Peter, is there anything else that you wanted to show before we move on?
No, I think now's the fun part. Now's the part everyone's been waiting for.
Fantastic. So we're going to do a giveaway, and there's two parts to the giveaway. Okay, so this slide is okay. The next slide I don't want to go to just yet. So we're going to ask a question and to see who's been paying attention. And put it in the chat. Whoever answers the question correctly first will get a free team member on their account. It's for a full year. So it's so just like Peter mentioned in the chat, it's worth $500. It's like giving you an extra $500 value. So a free team member for a year. And then we are going to have another prize as well. So if you don't get this one, don't worry about it. There is a second prize as well. But let's do this one. So the question is, Peter, did you want to go for the question?
So the question, and I'm watching the chat right now, what's the name of the company that we've been demonstrating over the past 20 minutes or so? We tried to plug it in just a couple of times there, but anyone who can type it in first, hey, there it is for Jay. It is Optical Illusions Inc.
There you go. That was quick. That was
Well
really
done.
quick. Good
I'm
for you.
glad you guys were
Congratulations.
listening. I'm glad you guys were a part of our wonderful company here. Anurag was nice enough to invite me. So yeah, we're giving away one team member on there. So Jay, I'll make sure to email with the account that you've set up for our webinar here, and I'll let you know what account you want us to add it onto, and I'll get that sorted out. But don't worry, we do have a fun one for everyone else here as well. So Anurag, you take it away.
All right. So again, Jay, congratulations. Everyone else, Jack, thanks for throwing that in there. Very, 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 very good. For everyone else, we have another giveaway here. So for everyone else on the webinar today, if you get in touch with our support team and use the word Scooby-Doo, okay? Use that code word. You're going to get a 50% discount for for adding team members to your account, okay?
It's because the gang is all here. We're all
There
part of the one Scooby-Doo gang. So if you tell us that you're a part of the Scooby-Doo gang, we'd be happy to have all of your team join up together with us.
Awesome. So again, everyone, the code word is Scooby-Doo. So just get in touch, and it's up to you how you want to insert that into the sentence, right? When you're talking
creative.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how you insert it, just put it in there. And our support team, we've given them a heads up. They know all about it. So you can do that starting right now.
Now,
Okay.
we're only running this for the next couple of weeks. This is something that's just going to be out here for the month of November. So
that's right.
Be sure to come in soon, because otherwise, our gang's going to have limited slots.
That's exactly right. And thanks, Peter, for catching me on that. I did forget to mention that. So it's up until the end of the month. It's November 30th. So do it as soon as possible. And again, get creative on how you mentioned Scooby-Doo. So looking forward to seeing those.
So thanks so much, everyone, for joining in. Just wanted to give a quick section if anyone has any questions, anything that you guys wanted to touch on about team members, or really anything at all. And if you guys have anything that comes up a bit later on, anything about your own specific company, feel free to shoot us an email. Feel free to get in touch with us on our Contact Us page. Any way that you guys want, we're more than happy to help. Don't be a stranger.
100%. So I'm just going to switch to the chat here and see if we have any questions. Oh, I think Michael has a question here.
It's possible, Michael, you might be able to lock products. If you locked products, in this case, he's just asking about default descriptions that they modify. Yeah. If you locked those individual sales reps from being able to not edit the products, I don't believe they should have the ability to update those descriptions in the sales orders. I'll make sure I'll shoot you over an email a bit later on, because this is something I want to check with my development team on. But I believe if they don't have the ability to update products themselves, they wouldn't be able to change any of those product specific fields on the sales orders as they're building them. So again, I'll do a little bit of testing, but I think that should be able to solve your problem there, at least for the sales reps, because you're obviously still going to want some people that can edit products. Does that answer your question there?
Awesome.
Great news.
Wonderful. Any other questions? Feel free to throw them in the chat there.
Going once. Going twice. And sold. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much,
everyone, for joining in.
I appreciate it. And remember, the code word is Scooby-Doo. So get that going. All right, everyone. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.